Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Take Out the Stigma of Grief. Today, we are going to talk about a different form of grief than most people normally think about, and that is the grief that is associated with going through a divorce. So today's session is Happily Ever After Divorce, a Grief Journey. My name is Nicole Fulmer, and I am with Delaware Hospice. I'm the Director of Community Engagement. And today I am joined by two amazing women, Julie Yeager, who is a lawyer, and also Stephanie Lankford, who is going to share her personal story of going through a divorce and some amazing things that she has done since that divorce to empower other women. So with that, Julie, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your law firm?
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the presentation. My name is Julie Yeager. I am a Delaware family law attorney. I've been practicing mainly in family law for 15 years. I opened this law firm in 2011. I'm the owner and managing partner. Patty Ware is also an associate attorney in my law firm, and we focus only on civil family law matters. So that would be anything from divorce with property division, alimony issues, custody, child support, termination of parental rights, adoptions, orders of protection from abuse, anything that falls within the parameters of civil family law. Since 2017, I've also started mediating mainly divorce and custody cases. And the family court is in the process of kind of pushing more and more cases towards the mediation spectrum. And I have found just in my own personal practice that people seem to be much happier with the results and with the process through mediation. So at this point, my practice is probably about 50-50 mediation and litigation.
Thank you so much. And I'm just so glad that you were able to join us today and just help guide people who are either going through a divorce themselves or perhaps know somebody. I wish I would have had something like this years ago to help me. So thank you again for joining. And Stephanie, thank you for sharing your story. I think it's just so powerful. And with that, I will let it to you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Lankford, and I am the creator and founder of Rebel Girl Village, which is a small housing community for single mothers. I'm also a coach for divorcing women and single moms. I've been divorced for about 3 years now, and I'm truly excited and love the life that I'm creating for myself and my two young girls who are 8 and 5. It's a twisty and bumpy road to get where I am, but if you're going through something like this, I promise you, you will get through it. So I will share a little bit about my story and as well as 3 steps that helped me let go and move forward. I was married for 10 years and my marriage had all the bells and whistles. We had a lavish and elaborate wedding, close to 300 guests. We had a choreographed dance that, wowed everybody, and there was lots of partying and merrymaking. My marriage had gourmet meals and rare wines and travels to exotic locations. It had a lovely home and our own businesses where we set our own work hours and we made our own schedules. My marriage had a sweet dog and 2 beautiful daughters. My marriage also had hostile arguments, 3 marriage counselors, and 1 drug and alcohol counselor. It had excessive alcohol abuse, a little domestic violence, and calls to the police. My marriage had emotional and verbal abuse, drunk driving episodes, and pleas for help. It may have looked shiny and happy on the outside, but on the inside, it was toxic and dysfunctional. I had never felt more alone, more desperate, or more miserable than my last 3 years of marriage. As I put the pieces of my marriage, as the pieces fell apart, I frantically ran around scooping them up and putting them back together. I was diligently doing my own inner work, raising my 2 little girls, running my own business, and convincing someone else to do their own inner work too. I was beyond overwhelmed and my fuse was getting shorter. I was filled with anger and rage toward my marriage, and I despised being in it. Although I felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing, right? Like that's what we're taught. together forever until death do us part. One night around midnight, as I was sharing a bed in the guest room with my daughters, I awoke to a slurring voice that clearly had too much to drink. I came downstairs to see what the fuss was about. It was a fox crying in our suburban neighborhood. A declaration that this inebriated voice was going to shoot the fox came out loud and clear and proceeded with a grabbing of the shotgun. I knew there was no way I could talk sense into the situation with someone under the influence. The terror I felt at that moment ran me back to the room with my girls, locking the door and praying no one would get hurt. In that moment, I realized I was no longer able to pick up the pieces and I needed to let them fall around me and let go. The first step in me letting go was to embrace the sorrow. I had been angry for so long that I seemingly pushed away all the sadness. When I knew I couldn't fight anymore, I felt a rush of relief from letting the tears finally flow, and I made my decision to leave. The grief felt more of like a cleansing, and it was a beautiful and necessary part of my process that actually helped propel me forward. Grief isn't something that we need to overcome, it's something that we need to feel. And it was like the closing of one chapter so I could begin the next one. I swirled in my head for months before I left. Why couldn't he change? How were we going to make this work financially? How would I get by as a single mom? I read inspirational and personal development books, which helped me to keep the positive mindset when I was feeling hopeless. But I still had this like frenetic energy inside me that I just couldn't escape. The second step in me moving forward was to actually give voice to that energy. In my case, this was fear, wondering how I was going to make this work. Fear is our mind keeping us in the comfort zone, trying to keep us safe, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not something that we should be doing. Deep down, I knew the answers to all those questions. And once I allowed myself to acknowledge that energy and wrap that fear with love, it gave me the space to take that brave leap and move forward. The fear that once paralyzed me was still dancing in the back of my mind, but I made peace with it, knowing everything would fall into place. I moved out of my house and into the city and chose a path of wonder instead of one with fear. It was in acknowledging the fear that I found the courage to leave. And when I did, out came this brave, strong, resourceful, and resilient woman. I was so happy to be out of the marriage and out on my own, but I had this lingering thought in my mind of failure. It's so common to hear that divorce is the death of a marriage, and those who go that route are failing to keep their family together. This was such a negative thought, and it really weighed on my mind. The third step for me moving forward was to shift perspective. Instead of looking at this divorce as a death, I chose to look at it as a rebirth, which allowed me to take an entirely different approach to what life would look like. I looked forward to becoming me in a whole new way, and I got to rewrite my story with a brand new beginning. Shifting perspective opened up my eyes in ways that I never thought about. None of those questions I had asked really mattered anymore, but the most important question I asked was, who do I get to be now? As I was out on my own, I started meeting other single mothers and their families. I talked to them about their divorces, their struggles, and their future goals. There were so many similarities in the women that I met and what we all wanted. Ultimately, we all wanted happiness for ourselves and happiness for our children. I started exploring what it would look like about partnering up with another single mom for the collaborative benefit of all of us. We're not meant to do this alone. We find strength in connection and community. Many women I talk to love the idea of living close to one another and relying on each other for childcare, daily interaction, the sharing of meals, and the sharing of hearts. This is how the Rebel Girl Village got started. Last year, I purchased a home on a half an acre in North Wilmington with an apartment attached to it with the vision of creating a haven for single mothers. My closest friend and her two daughters live next to us for the past year, and we helped each other in every way that we could. Our kids played together, we shared community chores, we started an elaborate garden, and we just genuinely enjoyed each other's company. The help we gave each other wasn't just physical either. It was very emotional and very spiritual as well. I've just started a fundraiser to renovate another building on my property for occupancy of another single mom and her family to live there as well. As a community, we take away the challenges of doing it alone, bonding in sisterhood and single motherhood, and we find our way forward. So, yeah, if that resonates with anyone, or you know someone who's going through that as well, I encourage you to join the Rebel Girl Village on Facebook. And you could, reach out to me, email or phone, if that sounds, like something that someone needs.
This is absolutely incredible. I've, talked to a lot of friends that have gone through divorce, and, this is an idea that comes up, but for you to have taken this and run with it and brought it to fruition, it's so amazing and so empowering and so powerful to, to teach your girls this and just resilience.
Yeah. And they definitely,
It's wonderful.
yeah, thank you. They love having, people around, and like they feel like they've got a second or third mom, depending on who's here. And, the kids, they bond really well. Everybody knows they have their own chores, and we just really work together. It really is like a little community. It's really lovely.
So tell us about this picture here with I see you and your two girls.
Yeah. So
Are these other women and girls still with you?
So the family on the left have just moved. They were able to save enough money to purchase their own home. So she and her boyfriend have moved on. They're just a mile down the road, so they still come, and hang out. The woman in the middle, she lives here. And then it's me and my two girls on the right-hand side. So right now the apartment is open. So I'm looking for the next family who wants to move in. And then, like I said, once we have the fundraiser, I'll start renovating that other building that's on the back of my lot to make another house.
It's absolutely incredible. I love it. It's, the new modern family unit.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should make I could see like the new modern family. I think ABC or Disney got hold of this. They would love this idea.
Right?
I could really see this grow. Thank you for sharing that. And, very like intimate in a way of the struggles that you went through, and you've
Yeah.
definitely come out much stronger.
Thank you. I feel like it's so common for us to have these struggles, but for a lot of us, we're keeping it inside. And so getting the awareness out there and raising the consciousness allows us to feel more open to share those struggles and bond and collaborate to how we can help each other.
And those words that you said about the sisterhood and the community and the connection, it's just remarkable.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
So let's turn now to talk through some ways to help get through a divorce, should you be going through it or someone that you know. And when I was doing a little research, I found basically these 5 steps that can really help. So we'll walk through these each individually. And for some of these, we're going to rely on Julie and her expertise to shed some light on. So this is such a unique concept, and one that I think can be utilized in other aspects of our life. And I think would have been very helpful for me about 18 years ago. But the idea of 3 buckets. And in each bucket, draw at the top of the page what you need, what you want, and what you are willing to let go. And it's a visual of sorts. And I think as you're going through some negotiations and mediation, it helps to say, what are those things that I will not bend to, particularly when it comes to, say, your children. But then what are some of those things that you could let it go if you had to? And, you might also want to consider what the other person may or may not want. But again, just this visual, can really help to compartmentalize what you're going through in your grief.
If I
Number
can
2.
jump in, Nicole.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Julie.
I like the way that you phrased it, and throughout my practice, I phrased it slightly differently. Typically, when I have individuals come in either on an initial consultation or when I have both clients in on a mediation where I've both spouses with me. I talk about your priorities. So I always ask people to name their 3 priorities. And sometimes that can be something financial, like keep the house, or have some sort of financial security, or keep my business. And sometimes it has more to do with the children. I want to make sure I have a relationship with my children, a good relationship, or I want shared placement. But I always ask people to name their priorities, because sometimes that can get lost over months of litigation. But if we can refer back to, when you first came to me, this is what you said you wanted. Then when you're looking at a settlement proposal or a final property division agreement, you can feel confident that you did get what you needed, as you said, maybe didn't get
Yeah,
everything you wanted.
exactly. I love that. And when you're meeting with people for the first time, what do you normally tell them? Do you tell them to bring something for that initial consultation? How does that normally work? You can walk us through that.
Sure. The initial consultation is typically more about meeting your lawyer, making sure your lawyer is a good fit for you. And from my perspective, meeting the clients and making sure that it's a matter that I can um, help them through. So it's usually much more about just getting the general backstory, making sure Delaware's the correct jurisdiction, making sure that we're a good fit for each other. At that initial meeting, if you're already in some sort of litigation, obviously bring whatever paperwork you already have. But I find that initial meeting is more about people meeting people. And then at the next meeting, we really get into more about the, assets, debts, and
Okay.
starting to talk about how to divide things.
Well, that is a perfect segue into this slide and the next slide. This one, understand that it's business right now, that when you entered into the marriage, there was a marriage contract. And now it's about separating that, the partnership. And also you had mentioned about the assets, like division of property. And of course, it can be so difficult because there's a lot of emotions going through, and it's hard to keep those at bay. And what you said too about the state laws, just making sure that you are, as you said, in the correct jurisdiction. And then when you said about, the finances, the debts, I believe it's the financial affidavit required by the court, it's just know your numbers, to bring some of these, to have these, the importance of setting up that separate bank account. And that was something I had not thought about. And basically when I moved out to a safe haven, to my mother's with our infant son, he literally locked the doors. I couldn't get any of my things and wiped out the bank account.
Mhm.
And just seeing that, it's something so simple but so incredibly important.
And I agree with you. And we call it the ancillary financial disclosure report. So we have to have long names for everything. But it
Of
is about,
course.
it's a 12-page document and it is quite intensive. And the lawyer obviously needs help from their client to complete that document. So to the extent that individuals can, make copies or print financial statements and have those records to give to their attorney, it's incredibly helpful. And also, like you said, um, possibly to go see the lawyer before you choose to separate, so that you can kind of get your ducks in a row before you walk out the door, just so that you do have the opportunity to take things with you, to make sure that you have some financial security in terms of, half the bank account or credit cards already set up in your name, um, because it can be very dramatic and very quick in terms of your spouse's reaction.
Yes, definitely can. I can definitely attest to that one. On this next slide, about creating your empowerment team, and I love this phrase that you're the CEO of your own life. And we talked about a couple of these things already. You yourself, you said you specialize in the family law. What about a financial advisor? Do you recommend people do that, or is it maybe in just some cases?
I have a relationship with a financial advisor company who I refer people to when I think it's appropriate. Um,
Okay.
I don't know that it's necessary in every single case, but certainly if individuals are receiving a larger lump sum or retirement assets, uh, or in cases, for example, where they might be being offered a lump sum in lieu of monthly alimony payments, something like that, I do think a financial advisor can be helpful in those cases.
Okay. And you had mentioned litigation and mediation, and you said that's about 50-50 in your practice. Is that correct?
In my own practice, it is. And Delaware has been a little bit late to the mediation game. Maryland refers every single case to mediation before you see a judge. In Delaware, we're trying to push more and more towards mediation because of how successful it's been in other jurisdictions. But more so, in my personal experience, it's successful because the parties like it and they get a better result in their own minds from mediation. So while it's not court ordered in Delaware, you can voluntarily enter into mediation.
Okay. I would think that would help. It wouldn't be as, I guess, as stressful, and just help both parties trying to do that. Now, I know we do have this resource listed here for the Delaware Family Court site. Can you tell us a little bit about what we would find on that site?
Sure, the
See if
Delaware
I can
Family
actually click on it. Sorry, go ahead.
The Delaware Family Court has done a very good job of trying to put resources together for individuals specifically who can't afford to hire an attorney or who may want to do their own investigation and research before hiring an attorney. So Delaware Family Court, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's something like 90% of litigants come before Delaware Family Court without their own attorney. So they certainly cater to unrepresented parties. And so they've created resources which include by category instruction packets, template forms, um, just overview topics. So divorce annulment is, I think, the first topic on their page, but they also have custody, child support, guardianship. They have a number of topics, and they've done a very good job with providing information for individuals to review.
Good, great, thank you. Something definitely to look into beforehand.
Yeah,
And then this fifth step. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
all right. So the family court's not going to give any legal advice on their own website. It's more procedural advice. So they're not going to tell you what kind of property division split would be favorable to you or how much you should get in child support. It's more about the procedures and filing the correct forms and completing the forms correctly.
And just knowing that can help so much, especially if you're not sure if you should be doing this or not, and just making sure you have as much knowledge ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
This next step, I love this, Stephanie, and you had even mentioned it. It's, writing that next chapter and what's to come. I love the idea of looking forward. When you're driving a car, you don't want to stare in the rearview mirror or you're going to crash. You have to keep looking forward, and occasionally you can look back. But the important thing is to look forward. And self-care, it's so important. In all of our discussions this week regarding grief, we talk about how critical it is for people to be kind to themselves, to be patient, to be compassionate. This is difficult. Going through grief is hard. As much as people want to go around it, you have to go through it in order to come out on the other side. And just simple things to remind people about when you see someone going through grief, whether it is from divorce or the loss of a loved one. It's, to try to take care of yourself, to eat well, to exercise as much as you can. This next one, I'm sure Stephanie, you can talk to this about how do you tell the children? And of course, in an ideal situation, it would be that you could both present it to the children together. But I know that's not possible in all cases. But to be able to have the support that you need around you, whether that be family or friends, to help out with that, and you're laying the foundation for basically what is to come. And Stephanie, I'm curious if, if someone's thinking about divorce, um, what would you say to them, maybe to encourage them if they were in a situation like yours?
I mean, a lot of the same things that you're saying here, like um, going through the grief instead of thinking that you can go around it was huge because, you're just avoiding having those feelings. And I think really getting in touch with that actually helps propel you forward. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck in that situation. You're kind of stuck in like the anger and that phase, and you're not moving forward. I kind of came up with a plan on like how I was going to do that too, like moving out, finding a place, finding support from other friends and from other people around. Also, because your main support system probably was your husband at one point, his family, some friends that you had in common. So you kind of have a whole separate support system that's not here anymore. So seeking that out, was really important for moving forward.
I think I found in death and in divorce, you find out who are your true friends,
True.
and family. And, and it's interesting. And in a lot of people that I've spoken to, they said that the people they thought they could count on may not necessarily be the ones who make the greatest impact.
Right.
It's part of that sisterhood when you're going through and you're reaching out and you're meeting new connections, and, someone that's been there, and, the ones that are always there for you. So it's, there definitely is hope out
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, is there anything else that you would like to share, or anything maybe that we didn't touch on, that you think is important for people to know that are about to embark on this journey?
Sure. So there's some misconceptions going around about the status of the family court currently. So even during COVID, the family court is currently open. They're on a 4-phase plan towards reopening within the pandemic. They were at phase 3. They've stepped back to phase 2 as of earlier last week. But at all times, the family court has been open. So you can file a petition for divorce. Those petitions are being heard on the same timeline that they were previously. Sorry, I just saw Stephanie's chat. So those petitions are still being heard. They're still being decided. We are still having hearings in the family court. Under phase 2, most of the hearings are being held by Zoom or telephone. Very few hearings are being held in person. That is up to the judicial officer's discretion if a hearing should be held in person. So you do not need to wait in any sense because of the pandemic to file any sorts of petitions. Just timeline wise, real quickly, to file a petition for divorce, if it's a no-fault divorce, you would be separated for 6 months before the petition would be granted. In Delaware, we handle the property division after the divorce. So your property division might not be handled for 6 months, probably to 10 months after the divorce is granted. And this would be one of the reasons people choose to go to mediation instead, is because at mediation, you might be able to reach an agreement handling all of your custody, child support, property division, alimony issues within a couple months before your divorce is even granted. And those can be drafted into an agreement, and then you would never have to go to court. So in either event, you'll reach a final resolution. There is the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you can go the mediation route, I always suggest it just for those reasons. My clients tell me how stressful it is to be in litigation, how stressful it is to have it kind of hanging over their heads for even 6 months to a year, which is not long in terms of litigation timelines, but feels very long to my clients.
Of course. Thank you so much. Stephanie, anything else you want to add?
I would say keeping the positive mindset was huge for me too. Knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, like Julie said, like knowing, this might be pretty upsetting and pretty dark while you're going through it, but you're eventually going to come out of it and it's all going to be fine.
You were definitely living proof of that.
Yes.
And hello, I see one of your daughters there, kind of peeking up over it. Well, as we're getting ready to wrap up, I just wanted to put your contact information in here. We're here for you. Delaware Hospice, we say, is more than just hospice care. We have a number of programs that we offer. We're breaking out here and we're doing new things and talking about, the different types of grief in particular this week. But we have bereavement programs for children and for adults. Palliative care programs and programs that are non-medical in nature, just connecting people with resources in the community. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to check our website or give us a call. And then I do have contact information listed here for both Stephanie and Rebel Girl Village. I know I'm really interested in helping out with this fundraiser. I think it's just something that is extraordinary. And Julie's law firm here. And ladies, I'd like to thank you. And I'd also like to give a special shout out to an organization called WingMom. I have been so fortunate and blessed to be in touch with this extraordinary woman named Kate Maxwell, who founded WingMom. And basically, it is about building a village of moms that help each other. They are there to help with many, many different needs when you're going through something difficult, and even just life during a pandemic. But they have been fantastic and basically came up for the idea of take out the stigma of Grief Week. So special shout out to them. And then just a special nod to our corporate sponsors. As a nonprofit organization, we rely heavily on our volunteers, on our donors, and our community sponsors to make a lot of our programs possible, and many of them offered for free. Well, ladies, I would like to thank you again, especially for, just a few hours before Thanksgiving, for joining us and helping us to wrap up this incredible week talking about grief. And I hope you both, and you and your families, stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.